Hey guys, what's up, and I welcome you all to a new League of Legends video. I will be talking about AD Fizz. Now this is a type of build on this champion that has been very popular ever since the huge nerf on him. And at first, I'll be honest, I was very skeptical. I really didn't think it will work whatsoever, and I thought it was more of just a for fun or maybe troll build rather than actually being something serious and potentially good. It did take me a while to finally get convinced. I barely played myself because this is a build you actually normally see either in the top lane or in the jungle. But after playing against so many AD Fizz players and finally trying it out for myself, I must say it is a lot more fun and a lot stronger than I initially anticipated. In this video, you will see me playing it in the mid lane because with most champions, I like to play them in the mid lane. But normally, I'll tell you right now, this will be something that you'll see more in top lane or even jungle, so having either teleport or smite respectively will be the second summoner spell, not ignite. The reason you see it in those lanes and not mid lane is because AD Fizz doesn't really have a lot of burst, and the build path is very similar to something you will see on a lot of top lane champions, for instance maybe a Jax, maybe an Aurelia, even a Nasus. The great thing about AD Fizz is the fact that he's not really an AD champion. I mean, sure, you build AD items on him like a Sheen or maybe like a Blade of the Ruined King, but a lot of the damage output coming out is still magical. In fact, the type of damage that is coming out from AD Fizz is very similar to Akali, a lot of magic damage with a hint of AD. So as a very quick summary, the beauty of AD Fizz is you have a lot of on-hit effect damage coming out, your W, your Sheen effect from Triforce, your Blade of the Ruined King, maybe even a Wood Sand, and the fact that getting the 40% cooldown reduction is quite a necessity. And the final thing is you will be building tank items, so not only are you annoying to deal with because you're so slippery with the 40% CDR, you're actually very tanky, and your damage output is still nothing to laugh at. Before we actually go into the positives of AD Fizz, I want to quickly mention that you want to max your W first, followed by your E, and then finally your Q ability. The reason is because your W is your main source of damage, while your E is just so important in terms of having a lower cooldown. You really need to max it second. So let's quickly go through the positives of going AD Fizz. The first thing, like I said, is that it probably is more annoying than AP Fizz because again, you have so much CDR, so you're just so slippery, you have tankiness, you have consistent damage coming out, and you're just very annoying to deal with. Now this next positive isn't really a positive, it's just a different type of playstyle. For instance, AP Fizz is known for that immense burst, while AD Fizz doesn't really have that same burst, but the damage output is very consistent, which is why you see AD Fizz in the top lane and maybe the jungle more often than you'll see it mid, because it just fits that playstyle. Thanks to your Bork and your W, you'll be dealing a ton of percent HP damage, which really is a huge positive. Now the next point is probably the main reason as to why AD Fizz even works. Your ultimate now gives you 20% bonus damage to your target. So this of course includes Fizz's spells, his auto attacks, and even his on-hit effects, for instance the Sheen, the percent damage coming out from the Blade of the Ruined King on your W, and just really every form of damage you can deal other than true damage. This is a great build for solo queue because if you get ahead, I mean people will just not know how to deal with you while you're just dealing quite a bit of damage, and while it's not a completely meta pick and people are still slowly picking it up, I highly recommend bringing it into solo queue while people are still adjusting and not really sure on how to deal with it, or before it just simply gets banned out. Overall, a pretty sweet pickup that I recommend trying out for top lane or jungle, maybe mid lane if you really want to, and I feel like the playstyle is very similar to Riven. You rush a damage item or two and then you just start rushing the CDR, like the Lucidity boots for instance, and just become a very mobile and annoying champion. Next, let's touch on the cons, and there are quite a few important ones. The first of which, and probably the main reason as to why I always look down upon AD Fizz, is because he doesn't provide any CC. Now before, when you played AP Fizz in the mid lane, I mean chances are you can get away with it because your top laner and your jungler tend to just bring a lot of that CC that you're missing. For instance, a Maokai, a Jarvan, a Vi, an Aurelia, Malphite, Rek'Sai, and the list just goes on. But if you put AD Fizz in top lane or jungle, I mean that's a lane that's just not going to be bringing any CC, and usually again you want those lanes to bring CC. So in my opinion, this is probably one of the biggest drawbacks, and because of that, my second point, if he falls behind, he's very useless, because usually if you're playing a Vi jungle or a Maokai top, even if you fall behind, I mean you're still pretty useful, you still bring the CC like a Vi Q or ultimate or a Maokai snare, Maokai's ultimate reducing damage, and overall they're still very useful thanks to their utility. But if you fall behind as an AD Fizz in top lane, I mean your damage output is nothing too high and you're not gonna really bring a whole lot to the team, especially if your mid laner doesn't already bring a lot of CC. So a very risky pick. I mean if he gets ahead, yeah, he's very strong and he can probably solo carry, but if he gets behind, I mean good luck winning. Another thing is the fact that his Q is the only ability that does have AD ratios, but again it does make up for the fact that his ultimate gives him 20% damage increase, which really is the only reason 80 Fizz is even viable. And the final thing, he has no burst damage. It's very consistent, which again for top laners and jungles is fine, but the playstyle is just a little different compared to AP Fizz. Alright guys, let's go into the juiciest part of the video, the items. So you can start off with either a flask, a Doran's, or even a longsword. Just to be safe, I recommend the flask. But if you feel like you can be super aggressive in the laning phase, you're not really scared of the opponent, then go for the Doran's or longsword. Now the very first item you want to rush, almost without any exceptions, is the Triforce. If you can get the Sheen in one buy, I recommend picking that up. If you can't and you have to buy small parts at a time, start going for the Phage first. But Triforce is your most essential item, so make sure you get that first before anything else. Following that, you want to start getting the CDR because 80 Fizz is just super reliant on CDR. So Boots of Lucidity definitely help that out. Following that, you want to get the Blade of the Rune King or a Wood Sand. I personally like the Bork because of the active effect and just the combination of the percent damage from the Bork and your W. And the final item I recommend you get almost always is a Frozen Heart because it gives him the tankiness that he needs on top of that 20% CDR. And thanks to your Lucidity boost, 5% from Masteries and the 20% from Frozen Heart. Bam! That's 40% CDR right there. For the final items, usually you want to just get pure tank, maybe a Banshee's Veil, maybe a Guardian's Angel. You can even get away with a mild Malmortius, maybe a Randuin's, a Sunfire Cape, whatever the case may be. If you want, you can always switch out the Lucidity boots for the Sork boots, but I highly recommend the 15% CDR. And Wood Sand, like I said, is also a pretty good option in place of Blade of the Rune King, or maybe just as a third item if you really want to. Let's go into the Masteries next. Now this page is quite straightforward, 2190, not much to explain here. The only thing you can switch out is at the very top of the offense tree. Instead of getting the CDR, you can go for the attack speed, but I like the 5% just because I get the 40% with the item build I just mentioned. And as for the rune page, attack speed is just very important on Fizz on top of the CDR, so you want to run 3 quints of attack speed because again the damage is sustained, so you want to just stand there whacking away at them as much as possible, getting as many hits of the active W and the Blade of the Rune King as possible. For the reds, I just get flat AD. For yellows, you can either get flat HP per yellows, flat armor, really just depends on who you're facing. And then for the blues, I like to go MR per level or flat MR. Again, after your first 2 damage items, or maybe even just 1, you want to go pure tank, so the blue runes help that out quite a bit. But that's it for this video guys, that is 80 Fizz. I must say, it is actually quite strong and a lot of fun to play with because you're just hopping around the whole battlefield just dealing consistent damage. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to throw in a like, share it with your friends, tell me what you think about 80 Fizz as well. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please check out my other videos, I'm sure you will enjoy them as well. But as usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you for the next one. Peace.